Cut, hosted by Thomas Roth.
What up, y'all? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. My name is Thomas Roth. I am joined by Anthony Aquendo, my producer. And here at The Cut, we are here to give you the unfiltered takes that you are always craving. It used to be that we would give you some takes on some politics, we'd give you some takes on everything like that, but now we're going to give you the hot takes on sports, everything that's been going on for the past... Anthony, what the fuck are you trying to tell me? What's up, dog? Cup. Oh. Sorry, I had Coca-Cola. But let's restart that. Hey, guys, welcome to The Cut. This is Tom Roth. I'm here with my producer, Anthony Aquendo. We used to give you the hot takes on politics, current events, pop culture, all that shit. Fuck that. Now we're doing sports. Really happy that you guys were able to join us this evening. We got a couple things that we are going to be hitting tonight. So the L's are dropping like snowflakes. It has been snowing like a motherfucker out here in Northeast Ohio. We came home to a blizzard the past couple days. And, shout out to everyone going around plowing, shoveling, doing your damn thing. Keeping the county moving. We definitely appreciate you. I want to give a shout out to Michael Harvey and Chris Mixer, two guys that work for Harvey's Tire Service. They've been out there for the past 3 days just tirelessly plowing. They came to my house twice and got me out. I definitely appreciate you boys more than you know. I just want to shout everybody out. Everyone's getting real upset that they're snowed in and everything. You got to pay the cost to be the boss, man. If you don't want to spend $100 on a snowplow, get the fuck out there and shovel. Because I don't think you guys understand what a plow truck costs, what a plow costs, what the upkeep costs, everything like that. It costs money. These guys aren't ripping you off. They're out here trying to pay their bills, and they're away from their families while you guys are inside with your families. So show them some respect. Speaking of respect, we're going to get into a couple different topics tonight. We are going to talk about the Ohio State-Michigan game from this past weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about some football games from the past weekend. I also anticipate that we're going to talk about the big Browns game tonight. The Cleveland Browns go into Denver to face Bo Nix and the 7-5 Denver Broncos, led by the rookie quarterback, again, Bo Nix. Cleveland Browns quarterback by Jameis Winston, who led the Browns to a decisive victory 2 Thursdays ago against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the snow. It was probably one of the best Browns games I can remember in recent memory. So shout out famous Jameis. But before we get into that, go ahead and like the video, like the channel, subscribe to the channel, share this video, comment on this video, interact with us so we can continue to bring you fantastic content every week and we can get our name out there a little bit more. So, again, thank you very much to the people plowing out there, but also thank you to our sponsor at Cracked Productions. Cracked, the cell phone repair store in the Ashtabula Mall. If you need your fix, if you're cracked, busted, defective, or smashed your phone, or if there's just a little bit of a whoops, don't hesitate to give Cracked a call. Cracked, you can visit them at crackedrepair.com. That's CRAKD repair.com. You can select your repair type, the repair category. You can select your phone. You can select anything like that, and you can get a nice quote out there. Gives you a good idea of what you would be paying. It's the most competitive prices around. Our producer here, Anthony, the best in the business at producing podcasts, but he's also the best in the business at repairing phones and electronic devices. Call for a quote. Anthony, what's the phone number out there?
440-536-4044.
And the nice thing, guys, you can even book your appointment online. Truly seamless experience to make it the easiest for you to get out there, drop your phone off, be without it for a little bit, then get it back in great working condition. So give Cracked a call. Again, Anthony just gave the number one more time.
440-536-4044.
Or cracked, KRAKD repair.com. All right, so let's get into this Buckeyes game. Oh, man. Lot to say. I'm gutted. There's really nothing else that we can say. There's really nothing else that we can hang our hat on other than we blew it. 4 years in a row now. We lost 13-10 to a team that we should have blown out. Michigan without their number one corner in Will Johnson, who hurt his toe like a little bitch and didn't play in the game, but it didn't really fucking matter because Michigan came to play. They controlled the line of scrimmage the whole game. They didn't allow the run game to start. I'm pretty sure they killed Will Howard, the quarterback for the Buckeyes, at one point during the game. I'm almost positive that he died for a minute when Page, number 7, cracked him while he was on a scramble. And I mean, so here's the thing, guys. Ohio State was ranked as the number 2 team in the nation coming into the season. We were steamrolling opponents. We go into Oregon, lose at Oregon by 1 point because Will Howard didn't know how to watch a fucking clock. And he's vowed to be better, and they were. Ohio State came out on fire the rest of the year. We ended up beating the number 5 team in the country, the Indiana Hoosiers, who are not a slouch. They are a good team. But, I mean, Michigan came into the horseshoe, and they just controlled the game. They played Michigan football. And they ended up winning. And I think that there's a couple problems there. I'm not going to blame the players. I won't blame the players. The players are just executing the game plan that Ryan Day and Chip Kelly were calling. I don't understand how on 3rd and 10 you run the ball up the middle when you have Emeka Egbuka and Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, Mylan Graham, and who can forget the great Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver. We just don't throw to them. And we end up losing, like I said, 13-10. I thought there was life in the game when Captain Jack Sawyer intercepts the football. I thought that we had a puncher's chance at that point, and then Ryan Day just doesn't capitalize, and that's kind of been the story in big games for Day in the entirety of his career at Ohio State. Ryan Day is a very good coach. Let's not get it twisted, guys. Ryan Day is good at coaching college football. He calls a good game. He recruits well. He gets people to buy into his program. But if my employer gave me a Lamborghini, I've got to drive it like a Lamborghini. I can't put it on the freeway and set the cruise control to 65 miles an hour. I can't do it. You know, you're wasting the potential of what you have, and I feel like that's what Ryan Day was doing. He had built a team with $20 million in NIL money just distributed amongst guys like Caleb Downs, Seth McLaughlin, Will Howard, Jeremiah Smith, bringing back Emeka Egbuka, bringing in Keyshawn Judkins, who was the leading rusher in the SEC the last 2 years. The man is a dog. And we aren't using them properly. And there were guys, Denzel Burke, Jack Sawyer, Emeka Egbuka, who were top 3-round NFL draft talent. And they come back because they want to get a win over Michigan. And it didn't happen. So for the last 4 years, 2024, 2023, 2022, and 2021, there is one member of the 2021 recruiting class that has a win over Michigan. And that man's name is Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers, number 1 quarterback in the nation that committed to Ohio State to sit behind C.J. Stroud for that year. And he only beat Michigan because he got out of Dodge and went down to the University of Texas and has been holding the fort down there and has been the quarterback for the Longhorns. But but he beat Michigan this year, leading the team against them. So one member of the last 4 recruiting classes has beat Michigan. Now, Michigan has been a very good team for a very long time, but after their cheating scandal last year and winning the national title, losing guys like J.J. McCarthy, their number 1 player, it has been a noticeable drop-off. They were 6-5 going into the day, and they leave 7-5, and they hold the vaunted Ohio State offense to 13 points. 13 points when we have the greatest receiver in college football, Jeremiah J.J. Smith, number 4, suiting up for us. How that man didn't have 15 targets in that game blows my mind. And Anthony has a really nice graphic pulled up. I'd like Anthony to pull that up if you can, because what that's going to do, guys, is that's going to show us right here. Oh, excuse me. Right here. It's going to show us the scores of the last 4 years. So 13-10 Michigan, 30-24 Michigan, 45-23 Michigan, 42-27 Michigan, and then the 2020 game was canceled because Jim Harbaugh was a punk bitch and called the game because of COVID. If we look at those scores, I remember every one of those games. I haven't been able to watch them except for the one this year. I was on vacation from work and was able to watch. But I was able at my previous job, our general manager understood the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. I think he went to Ohio State. He was a pretty big Ohio State fan, and would let us kind of watch it on our TV or bring it in on the iPad, so we were able to like watch it there, right? But I remember those games, just the dominance that Michigan showed in those games, just leagues above us. And this year it didn't feel that way. This was a game that Ohio State should have won. Make no mistake, guys. Our kicker, Jaden Fielding, who was pretty accurate, missed 2 field goals, very makeable field goals as well in the game. We would have won 16-13. It should have never been that close. But with Michigan controlling the line of scrimmage, unfortunately, when your center, Seth McLaughlin, a transfer in from Alabama, goes out, I believe he tore his ACL moving a TV in the dorm rooms, and you're putting in a kid that's a backup guard to play center. It's not going to be a cohesive unit like it should be. And I'm not making excuses, guys. If you're the number 1 or number 2 team in the country, you should be able to overcome those inconveniences because you have a roster that is so deep and a roster that is so good that it should be next man up. And that was always the thing at Ohio State for the longest time, guys. It was always the next man up mentality because there was a culture. There was a Buckeye culture, right? And I feel that in the past couple years, that culture's kind of gone away, and it's because of the NIL money. Now, Anthony and I have talked maybe 3 or 4 times about college athletes being paid. Even before we were a sports show, we were talking about that. And I have maintained that I am not opposed to these kids getting paid money because the university does make a lot of money off their back, but it's an insane amount of money that these kids are getting paid. There is a $20 million roster that is rolled out there right now, okay? Anthony, do me a favor. Can you pull up the Oakland Athletics payroll for the 2024 MLB season? 2024. So, general manager David Forrest, the architect of the Oakland Athletics, had a $63.4 million payroll in 2024. That is a Major League Baseball team fielding 26 guys, at the most 40. It's 75 of them. That complete roster costs $20 million, where a professional MLB franchise had $63.4 million payroll. A third of that. That is insane. A $20 million roster this year. Makes his interception. We had another interception late in the game, but Will Howard throws it away, gets it picked off. And I get it. We can't put the blame on Will Howard. Will Howard is not Shadur Sanders. He's not Cam Ward. He's not Quinn Ewers. He's not even Carson Beck, right? Will Howard is an exactly average quarterback, but Will Howard understood he had the keys to a Lambo, so he had to drive it like a Lambo, right? And that's what he tried to do, God bless him. He's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the nation this year. He was he was conducive to Jeremiah Smith breaking every freshman receiving record for Ohio State. And guys, that list at Ohio State for wide receivers is prolific. Going back to Chris Carter, Chris Gamble, David Boston, Ted Ginn Jr., Santonio Holmes. You had Brian Hartline, Anthony Gonzalez, Garrett Wilson most recently, Chris Olave most recently, and now Emeka Egbuka this year comes back to be that senior leader. But then this kid, he comes in from Chaminade High School named J.J. Smith. They thought he was going to flip to Florida, but he didn't. He stayed at Ohio State, and he came in and he set records, okay? We lose this game because Ryan Day doesn't call the right game. And Chip Kelly, who was the architect of one of the most prolific offenses of all time back in the mid to late 2000s at Oregon, trotting out these insane offenses led by one of my favorite quarterbacks, Denny Dixon. I thought it was going to be a different story, guys. I really did. It was always Ohio State. You know what I mean? It's always been Ohio State for me. I am never going to renounce my Ohio State fandom. I'll never do that because at the end of the day, I didn't go to school at Ohio State. I'm not a Buckeye. I went to school at a Division III college. I'm a Titan, right? But I always felt a kinship with Ohio State because Ohio State always epitomized the hard work. They always epitomized Ohio against the world. They didn't give a shit. They trotted out rosters that were just loaded with talent, and they wanted to win because there was a culture. NIL ruined the culture at Ohio State. These kids care more about this bag now than they do winning over Michigan. And the saddest fucking thing that I saw that epitomized that thought was this was a big rivalry weekend in college football. And when you win a rivalry game, you go and you plant your flag at midfield, right? Michigan comes to plant the flag at the field, and Jack Sawyer says, they're not fucking planting the flag there again. No. And he runs over and he rips that flag away from that Michigan player and starts trying to tear that shit up. He's throwing it. He is not letting that shit happen. He is the only fucking guy that was doing that, man. Your captain, number 33, Jack Sawyer, that man epitomizes what it means to be a Buckeye, right? He epitomizes in that moment what it means to be a Buckeye. He wasn't taking that shit. He didn't want to take that shit. That's what it was. They lost the game, but Jack Sawyer played no part in losing that game because he came up with the big plays and he came up with the statement at the end that wasn't going to fly while he was still wearing scarlet and gray. While Ryan Day stood there like a dumb motherfucker and didn't do anything about it. And Jack Sawyer's getting in his face, like yelling at him about it. And I would too, man, because you're supposed to be a leader of men when you're a head coach. And it ain't just a leader of men anymore, college coach, man. You are leading a fucking company right now because make no mistake, as a $20 million roster, these aren't kids playing a game anymore. No, these are men. These are men not playing a game. These are men conducting business at this point. And that's how it should be portrayed. They didn't handle their business on Saturday. and it left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. Ohio State has now dropped from number 2 to number 7. I think that that's egregious. Ohio State should have dropped out of the top 10. Ohio State deserves no part of the playoff right now, because Ohio State, make no mistake, they will be in the playoff. Tomorrow night, they do release the next college football playoff bracket. I anticipate Ohio State dropping down to probably like 8 or 9 there, maybe 10. I don't think there's any way they miss the playoff. But I will tell you, Will Howard said, let's go get a natty. So let's go get a national title. If they call the game that they called on Saturday, there is no chance in hell that Ohio State has any shot of winning a title. They're not getting out of the first round at that point, because now if we would have won on Saturday, we're in the conference championship game against Oregon. We only lost by 1 to Oregon, and we have recouped, and we seemingly got better, right? And Oregon, we've had their number before. We beat them to win a national title when we had 12 gauge Cardell Jones back in 2014. I mean, we could do it, but now we don't even get that shot. So the first round bye is out the window now, man. We have a much tougher route to get to that national title game. We got to play 3 games to win a national title, and that scares the shit out of me, because I don't think these kids are built for it. I really don't, because, again, the culture. Jim Tressel had a very specific culture at Ohio State. It's a blessing to be a Buckeye, right? He famously said that. Urban Meyer, for everything that he is and everything that he was, a real fucking asshole. Urban Meyer demanded perfection from his players. And if you didn't perform and you weren't perfect, you weren't fucking playing, unless your name was Tim Tebow. But if Urban Meyer were here, this would never happen. Ryan Day doesn't understand the magnitude of Ohio State versus Michigan, and I will maintain that until the day I die. He doesn't get it. He'll never get it. And I think it's just time that we move on, guys. I think it's time that we say thank you for what you did. Thank you for being a part of this team. Thank you for helping construct this roster. Thank you for showing us what we need to do going forward and what we need to look for in a coach. And that brings me to my next point. Who do you get to replace Ryan Day at Ohio State if they do fire him? Now, Ross Bjork, the athletic director, has said that Ryan Day is our guy going forward. We fully anticipate him being the head coach next year. And I get it, but that's a lot of lip service right now. We're in the midst of some turmoil. We're trying to see if we're going to be in the playoff to get to a national title game. You can't be polarizing the team right now. But when you've got a $20 million roster, fuck your feelings, right? The Chicago Bears on Thursday lost due to time management issues. The Chicago Bears in their entire history have never fired a coach mid-season. Well, they fucking did it on Thursday. They fired Matt Eberflus and they hired Thomas Brown to be their new head coach, which, interesting enough, guys, which I think is very historic. It's the first time in NFL history that there's a black GM, a black head coach, and a black quarterback, starting quarterback in an organization, which is shout out to the Chicago Bears. That's awesome. That for making history. That's absolutely amazing. But I think you fire Ryan Day. The only way I think Ryan Day saves his job is if he wins a national title. And deservedly so, because at that point you've got to go through like Boise State, you've got to go through Georgia, and then you're probably going through Oregon to win the national title. If you can contain Ashton Genty from Boise State, who is 300-something yards away from breaking Barry Sanders' all-time season record, you can contain him. You win. If you play Georgia, it's a rematch of the last time we played Georgia. You get vengeance for that, which is beautiful. And then you beat Oregon, your Big Ten foe, and then you win a national title. You beat 3 very tough teams. I think you keep your job, deservedly so, because you ran a gauntlet, right? If there is anything other than a national title, you fire him. And I have a list of guys who I think would be the answer. And I got 5 guys. Okay. And it's going to go from least likely at number 5 to most likely at number 1. Okay. So we're going to start at number 5. At number 5, I give Nick Saban a call. Nick Saban was the head coach at Alabama. He won national titles. He retired from coaching because he didn't like the NIL. Nick Saban wants to be in charge. He wants to be the man. But Nick Saban is arguably the greatest coach in the history of college football. He's an analyst now. When you're an analyst and you're still relatively young like he is, I don't think you want to stay away as long. I think you give him a call, see if he wants to come up. I would love bringing an SEC style of football up to Ohio State and keeping on guys like Brian Hartline to recruit, keeping a guy like Jim Knowles to be your defensive coordinator, firing Chip Kelly and getting a guy in there that could really be a good offensive coordinator for him. I'd really like to see that. Nick Saban trotted guys out like Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Brian Robinson Jr. He developed a guy, Brian Robinson Jr., who is the starting running back for the Washington Commanders. Brian Robinson Jr. played 1 full year and parlayed that into being a top 15 running back in the NFL. He put out countless running backs. He put out countless wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy. He put out Julio Jones. I mean, just guys that household names. He's a developer of men. He's a developer of talent. I think that that's the least likely to happen, but could very well happen. Number 4, I hate saying this, and I really do. I really hate saying it. I don't want to see him, but I think it would bring some swagger and change the culture. And I think that man's name is primetime Deion Sanders. Deion's son Shedeur is on his way to being a top 5 NFL draft pick. I think that if Shedeur goes to someone like the Cowboys, Deion definitely goes with him to be the head coach because Deion was a famous Dallas Cowboy. They could fire Mike McCarthy and bring him in. The storyline writes itself. But if that doesn't happen, I think a big conversation needs to happen because Deion has changed the culture of a winless football team to now making them nationally relevant and in a bowl game. And they were a dark horse for the college football playoff up until a couple days ago. And they still might be a dark horse. But the talent level there, they're playing in the Big 12, which is not the toughest conference. It's a very top-heavy conference. And then after like the good 4 teams, it really drops off in terms of talent. But the talent is still there. It is high-level college football. I think that Deion, with a couple years of coaching under his belt, could come in, and he could definitely recruit his ass off, and he could get kids to transfer in, and he would bring a cadre of other people with him, like Warren Sapp, Chad Johnson, or Ochocinco, excuse me. Guys like that are around the program that could definitely bring a swagger and a level of heat to Ohio State that hasn't been seen in years. Number 3, I don't think it would happen, but I think it could happen. This guy has been exposed as a chump a couple years ago when he was coaching the Jacksonville Jaguars. He got fired midway through his first year. He didn't develop Trevor Lawrence whatsoever, and he really made his kicker's life hell, which I don't understand why. What did Josh Lambo ever do to anyone? But I think you call Urban Meyer up. Urban never would stand for losing to Michigan. He did, and he never did. Urban never lost to Michigan. Now, Urban did drop games to people like Purdue and Northwestern, right? But when it mattered, Urban was calling the game, and he was calling the right thing. I think Urban could come back. Ohio State was his dream job growing up. He loved being a Buckeye. He loved everything about that program. It was home for him, and we loved him there. And I think Urban could keep a lot of guys on staff that would buy back into him, and he could construct a roster with this NIL money now that would be insane. The only problem with Urban Meyer is Urban Meyer runs a very antiquated offense. He still believes that he has Percy Harvin on his team, so there can just be wide receiver jet sweeps every 3 plays, and zone blocking is just a non-existent thing. And I don't know necessarily if I'd even like it, but I definitely could see it happening. We got a question in the chat right now that Anthony put out. Do you think that Ryan Day should be fired? Guys, let me know what you think. And if we do fire him, who should we replace him with? And I'm giving you guys that list right now. I started with Nick Saban as the least likely, then Deion Sanders. I just talked about Urban Meyer, and now I'm going to go to number 2. This guy has no ties to Ohio State whatsoever. He is an NFL coordinator right now. I haven't even heard his name mentioned, but I can see it being very likely to happen because of how this guy operates. He runs such a great offense that would be perfect for Ohio State. And that guy's name is Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore was the Boise State Broncos quarterback for 4 years. He wasn't the biggest guy. He didn't have the strongest arm, but he was everything you wanted in a quarterback, and he does that with his offense too that he runs. It's a very, very balanced offense between run and pass. He enjoys the mobile quarterback. He builds entire schemes around his mobile quarterback now, and they're having success at the NFL level with this. And I think as this develops, Kellen Moore could be a name that you hear come into Ohio State because he gets out of being a coordinator in the NFL and gets to go build a program. He doesn't have all the pressure of being fired all the time or losing players every year in free agency, anything like that. He can build a program. He can retain a guy like Brian Hartline, who's one of the most prolific recruiters in the nation, to stay with him, help build a wide receiver room. He's got kids like Tavian St. Clair coming next year, who's one of the best college recruits in the country. To be his quarterback, he has a quarterback room of Air Noland and Julian Sayin, 2 great guys to build a program around, guys that Kellen Moore could use. It would really be a sight to see if you could get an NFL coordinator that might win a Super Bowl this year leading your sideline. It'd be absolutely amazing. Now, again, I think this is more likely than Urban Meyer, Deion Sanders, and Nick Saban. But I don't think it's very likely. But there is my final guy I'm going to throw out here. My final guy. I think this is the most likely and the thing that would probably happen. This guy coached the Tennessee Titans for a few years. He is now a special consultant for the Cleveland Browns. He is an Ohio State legend on defense, an absolute legend on defense. He played for the New England Patriots for a few years as a linebacker, defensive end, and also would spot up at tight end, and he caught a pass or 2 in the Super Bowl for a touchdown. That man would be Mike Vrabel. Vrabel is beloved at Ohio State. He is beloved. And I think his ties to the program make it a little bit of an easier thing to rein in because he would be a guy that has had success at the NFL level. He doesn't like recruiting, but he doesn't have to like recruiting because you've got guys like Brian Hartline in there that can go in and recruit high-level talent. Guys aren't coming to play for Ryan Day, I think, necessarily as much, like wide receivers, right? They aren't coming to play for Ryan Day. They're coming to be developed by Brian Hartline, right? Or guys on defense. They're not coming to play for Ryan Day. They're coming to be developed by a guy like Larry Johnson, right? That's what's happening If you can get that to happen and be coached by Mike Vrabel, who is an Ohio State legend, who knows what it means to be a Buckeye, then you have a recipe for success. I think Vrabel, he was there when the culture was shifting. They weren't that great in the 90s for a little bit, and then they started to come back. He knows what it means to be in that transition period. He knows what he's doing. I think if you bring Ryan Day in, or not Ryan Day, if you bring Mike Vrabel in, you surround him with a group of people that know how to call an offense, maybe even keep Jim Knowles and let him run that defense, but you have input because Vrabel is a defensive guy. If you do that, you could change the culture instantaneously and never lose to Michigan again. That's the thing, guys. I was not upset when we lost to Oregon. I was a little sad because I was like, how the fuck does our quarterback not know how much time's left on the clock? But it was a close game, and it was a good game, and we weren't getting blown out. We were neck and neck the whole time, right? That's okay. But when you lose to Michigan, I cannot forgive it. I don't care if we go 1-11. If we beat Michigan, that is a successful year. That one win against Michigan, that's success, right? Because we fucking beat our hated rival. I cannot state enough how disappointed I was, how gutted I was. You missed 2 fucking field goals, Jaden Fielding. Fuck you. Jack Sawyer's the only one who shows any emotion. Will Howard, he talked a great game all year about we're going to beat Michigan, we're going to win a title. But, brother, you don't deliver. And that's what I'm going to remember you for. You didn't deliver. And that's why guys like CJ Stroud, I'm not going to remember him in a few years, man. Like, I'll remember him because he plays for the Houston Texans and he's a good quarterback. But CJ Stroud never beat the Wolverines. Kyle McCord never beat the Wolverines. I'll forget who Kyle McCord is in 3 years. He never beat the Wolverines. Guys like Justin Zwick, guys like Troy Smith, guys like Kenny Guyton, guys like JT Barrett, Braxton Miller, I'm never going to forget them because they beat Michigan. Terrell Pryor beat Michigan, right? Those are the guys I remember. The guys that showed up when it fucking mattered and put a beating on a team that deserves a fucking beating. So we're going to transition out of this Ohio State-Michigan talk before I ramble on for another 3 hours because I got a lot I could say. Before we go any further in the video, go ahead and like and comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, share this video so you can continue to get great sports content from us every week as, we transition into the new year. We definitely appreciate you guys for joining us. And again, shout out to our sponsor, crackedrepair.com, CRAKD repair.com. Go on there. You can get a quote on everything. You can set up an appointment, make it real easy, real effective. Anthony Aquendo, the best producer in the business for podcasts and the best repairman of electronics in the business in this area. Give them a call or go on their website, crackedrepair.com. All right. So now we are going to get into the game at hand, ladies and gentlemen. I renounced my Cleveland Browns fandom a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that kind of thing. But here I am in an OBJ jersey. OBJ. Color rush. The Browns beat the Steelers a couple weeks ago in a snow game. Jameis Winston, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about half the time when he's talking. I just got to shake my head. The reporter says to him, what was your message to the team before the game to ensure the win? Oh, the horses of victory only right. And I was like, when he started saying that, I'm like, brother, just answer the fucking question. Like, what are you talking about? Like, the man makes no sense when he talks. Before the game, they show him with the team huddled around him, and he's like, It ain't about the lights. It ain't about the camera. It ain't about the action, but we got to be about the action, boys. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, brother? Like, what is going on? I get legitimately confused when Jameis Winston is doing anything, but God bless him. God bless him, because he's out there trying, and he won us a game. He has never played in that type of snow before, and he leads us to a win. And I thought it was really funny when all the Steelers fans were like, "Oh, this is the Browns Super Bowl, this, that, and the other thing." Brother, you guys are a much better team than the Cleveland Browns. The Pittsburgh Steelers could make it to the AFC Championship game this year. They really could. I mean, yesterday, Russell Wilson plays the game of his fucking life. I've never seen Russ be this good in the 12 years I've been watching him play football. He looked like college NC State Russ at points, which is wild if you get that reference, because Russ played at Wisconsin and NC State. But the Browns have been a franchise for quite some time, right? But they came back in 1999 after they relocated to Baltimore. And there has been not a great history, okay, on their side when they faced the Broncos in Denver on Monday Night Football, okay? So the Browns are 4-12 all-time on the road in Denver. Fun fact. And they are just 1-6 since their return in 1999. So 2018 was the last time the Browns won in Denver since 1990, and it was a 17-16 victory. And it was actually Baker Mayfield throwing the touchdown passes. Antonio Callaway, if you remember him, he had 5 receptions for 35 yards and a touchdown in that game. And Jabril Peppers sacked Case Keenum. If you remember Jabril Peppers, when he played for the Browns, he was our free safety, and he sacked Case Keenum to end the game. Jabril Peppers has since been thrown off the Patriots and then reinstated for a domestic violence issue. So that's how he's been relevant lately. But so this could be a game where we go in and we win, right? But it's going to be on the back of Myles Garrett, and it's going to be on the legs of Nick Chubb. Right? Because I don't ever really depend on Jameis Winston to win us a game. I depend on Jameis Winston to be good enough to get a couple yards and not throw an interception. And that's all you can really hope for with Jameis Winston. God bless the guy, but he is not going to set the world on fire as a quarterback. But I think everything being lost in this, again, not being a Browns fan, but more just now a casual follower of the team, what I've been finding is I'm enjoying the games more because I'm able to emotionally remove myself from them and actually watch the football game. And this team this year is not as good as years past. And the main issue is we get rid of Bill Callahan, who was our offensive line coach. When we get rid of him, this offensive line looks like absolute dog shit trash right now, right? None of the quarterbacks have any time to throw. But Jameis Winston is finding the guys in the tight windows like a real quarterback making multiple reads in a game should. Deshaun Watson, when he was playing football, it was like he was playing high school football again. He's making one read and he's forcing it to that player, right? Or he's refusing to scramble, and when he does scramble, he's running back and then side to side. He's not really doing a fluid motion to really break the pocket, find a second option or a second read, and then when that's not there, go. Jameis Winston already knows he's going to run. And if Jameis Winston does run on an off chance he didn't design the run, he knows where the lead blocking is going to go so he doesn't put himself in harm's way. So I think that is the starkest difference between Deshaun Watson and Jameis Winston at this point, is that Jameis Winston knows he doesn't need to take these risks in order to make a dynamic play. And we saw that when he was playing the Steelers and he did that run where he got into the end zone. He runs in for the touchdown, right? The play was broken down, but instead of hesitating and trying to be cerebral, Jameis Winston allowed himself to take himself out of being a system quarterback and just be a football player, right? He allowed himself, okay, I need to run. I got to get this fucking touchdown. And he does it. He also tries to force it to David Njoku, which is okay. He forces it to Cedric Tillman a few times. Cedric Tillman gets absolutely fucking rocked. And I thought he died at one point, but he came back to life. He just has a concussion. Praise God. Jerry Jeudy's looking like a man possessed right now. And Nick Chubb with a statement game of 2 touchdown runs. That was beautiful to see. And I think Nick Chubb needed that more than the Browns needed that. Okay? And what I mean by that is Nick Chubb has looked very pedestrian since he came back. And anyone would after a devastating knee injury like the one that he got. And thank God he came back and played football. I would have been fine if he never played football again for all he has done for this city. But he has come back and he has put the team on his back, and he showed that against Pittsburgh. Now, going into Denver, it's going to be a little bit different because Denver has a very good run defense, and they have one of the best corners in the NFL lined up against guys like Jerry Jeudy and Patrick Surtain II. Patrick Surtain's father was an absolutely prolific corner back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And his son, Surtain II, is the second coming. He's going to lock Jerry Jeudy up tonight. And we got a guy out there. Anthony, you might remember this. Back when we were younger, there was a guy, he played for the Kansas City Royals, and he also played for the Oakland, at the time, the Oakland Raiders. His name was Bo Jackson. You remember Bo Jackson?
Yeah.
Yeah. So his slogan for his Nike shoes was Bo Knows, right? So Bo Nix, the quarterback for the Broncos, I'm just going to go out and say it. Bo knows, man. Bo is the truth. Bo Nix is the best rookie quarterback in the NFL. Fuck Jaden Daniels. Fuck Caleb Williams. Bo Nix is that guy. He has turned this team around. They are 7-5. They are firmly planted behind the Chiefs. They will get a wild card berth. I'm telling you right now, the Broncos are good enough to make some noise in the playoffs. They have a cadre of receivers. They've got so many different running backs. They don't even have an actual running back one. They have guys like Jaleel McLaughlin, Javonte Williams, and Audric Estime, and Estime being the rookie from Notre Dame. They are just designed to be next man up at all times. Like, they're constantly rotating people in and out. They got different personnel. They've got different schemes that they're throwing out there. And Sean Payton, the head coach, who used to be the head coach of the New Orleans Saints when Drew Brees was there, has really tailored this offense around Bo Nix, and it is giving me shades of the New Orleans Saints. And I like watching it because Bo Nix is not forcing anything that he does not need to force. He is going out, he's taking risks, because Bo, even going back to Oregon and Auburn when he was the quarterback out there at both those schools back in college, Bo was putting his body on the line. And when he was at Auburn and beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl, I think when he was a freshman, that was insane. You knew this kid was going to be good. You knew he was going to be something in the NFL. And then he gets his guy from college, Troy Franklin, to come in. He's not even forcing the ball to Troy Franklin like he probably would if, you know, it was a dire situation. He is depending on other guys like Courtland Sutton to get out there and make these catches. And Courtland Sutton, I've had him in fantasy in one of my dynasty leagues for like 4 years, and I've just had him as like a placeholder because he's never really been shit. But I have had spot start him in a couple of my dynasty leagues this year, and he has put up points, 15 to 25 points for me in like the 4 or 5 games I've started him this year as a flex option. And I will never play Courtland Sutton as a wide receiver one. I've got A.J. Brown for that. I've got Mike Evans for that, whom I drafted, you know, with that foresight in some of these dynasty leagues. Traded for Courtland Sutton. Actually, I believe I do need to go back on that. But Cortland Sutton has revitalized his career this year, and it is due to Bo Nix. Bo, I think tonight, Bo goes for 245 passing yards and 2 tutties. I would say Jameis Winston passes for 175 with a touchdown and 3 interceptions. I think Jameis is due for a game where he's going to make mistakes. I think Chubb, 15 rushes for 43 yards and a touchdown. I think it's a very abysmal night on offense for the Browns, but I think that their guy, Myles Garrett, who proclaimed himself finally as the best defensive end in the NFL after the Steelers game, goes to work again tonight. And can we talk about that real quick? How TJ Watt didn't get 1 sack on Jameis Winston that Thursday game, but Myles Garrett had 3 sacks. And TJ Watt was going up against Jack Conklin and his cardboard knees, and DeJuan Jones, who's in his second year and tore something in his leg last week, still didn't get a hit on Jameis Winston. That was absolutely beautiful, and it was a pleasure to see. I was very happy for the Browns and their fans because they got to finally watch the Browns beat the Steelers, and the Steelers' excuses came out. And George Pickens at the end of that game, man, just taking Greg Newsome. And I don't even think that George Pickens wants to be an NFL wide receiver anymore. I think he wants a UFC contract because that dude is just off his fucking rocker. He is always just trying to fight someone. I remember there was an episode of South Park a few years ago where they parodied Russell Crowe. And Russell Crowe in South Park has the show called Fighting Around the World with Russell Crowe. I'm pretty sure that George Pickens would be on that show if he could, because all George Pickens wants to do is fight. It's pretty fucking lame. And then George Pickens says, I don't even think the Browns are that good of a team. I don't know how they beat us. Well, brother, they were good enough that night to beat you. And that's really all it takes. I'm not a guy who is into excuses when you're making millions of dollars. I'm a guy who wants action. The Browns stepped up to the plate. They had nothing to lose, and they came out and did the fucking thing, man. You know, Steelers didn't. I don't think the Browns do the fucking thing tonight. Unfortunately, I wish that they could, but I just don't foresee it. It would be nice to see, but you know what? Let it lay, let it be, and we'll go into Sunday and see what they've got. But I think it's a really fun time to be an NFL fan right now because of all the parody going on. Last night at the 8:20 game, it was the Bills and 49ers, and Christian McCaffrey hurts himself yet again, which sucks because he was fucking balling. McCaffrey was balling while he was in. And then Josh Allen throws a touchdown pass. He runs for a touchdown, and he catches the deflection and runs it for a touchdown. So he technically has a receiving touchdown too. And I think Josh Allen is the MVP of the NFL right now. There is no player in the NFL who was doing more with less. And you guys can argue to me all you want that Patrick Mahomes. No, the fact of the matter is Patrick Mahomes has a first-round pick wide receiver. He has one of the top 3 greatest tight ends of all time in Travis Kelce. He's got DeAndre Hopkins, who has been balling out. Isaiah Pacheco is back. Kareem Hunt came in and was dropping 29 fantasy points a week. I mean, Mahomes has weapons. Josh Allen threw a touchdown pass last night to fucking Matt Collins. Do you guys know who Matt Collins is? If you don't, I don't want to spoil anything for you. Just look up Matt Collins on YouTube. And you will be fucking amazed at how weird this fucking dude is. He's got a guy named Khalil Shakir who played at Boise State, who was good at Boise State, but, I mean, he's an undersized wide receiver. He loses Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis goes to the Jaguars this offseason. Amari Cooper gets traded from the Browns to the Bills midseason. He's lost a step. He's got James Cook, the brother of Dalvin Cook, at running back, who's a pretty all right running back. He's not the greatest, but, I mean, he's okay. They got Ray Davis back there, who's a rookie. They've got Frank Gore's kid, Frank Gore Jr. back there in the backfield. Dalton Kincaid playing tight end. Dawson Knox at tight end, who I think is hurt. Their offensive line is a patchwork. Their defense is pretty decent, but Josh Allen's balling. Josh Allen is the MVP this year. Mark it down right now. I would take a futures bet on DraftKings right now if I were you guys, and I put a 5 on it because I think Josh Allen wins MVP. There's just no other player in the NFL doing more with less and producing the way that he is. Now, you could argue Saquon Barkley because Saquon Barkley has been balling for the Eagles, but if you take Saquon Barkley out of the equation and you put another running back in there that's even like half as good as him, so like we'll go, like let's put like DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift left the Eagles to go to the Bears this offseason, but if we put DeAndre Swift back, DeAndre Swift's going to be behind that offensive line and he's going to do okay, right? Because he's also got Jalen Hurts, who's a running quarterback himself, and he vultures touchdowns from him. The Eagles' offense would still be okay. If you take Josh Allen out of that offense, I don't know outside of Patrick Mahomes and maybe Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, I don't think there's anyone else who could even do half as good of a job as Josh Allen is. And you can even throw Goff and Stafford out because they don't have the running ability that Josh Allen has. I truly believe that Josh Allen's MVP this year, and I don't think it should be a discussion. Lamar should be up there. Lamar Jackson could also be in consideration, but Lamar Jackson is also with Derrick Henry, who is opening up a lot for him, and their defense is just killer. And Mark Andrews, one of the top 5 tight ends in the league on his offense. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue for Lamar when Josh Allen's doing way better with no one around him. Another great game from yesterday would be the Buccaneers game and the Panthers game when Baker Mayfield, who the Browns exiled for Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield's got some fucking gas in the tank, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you that. Throwing that fade to Mike Evans in the end zone and Evans comes down with it? Are you joking me? Like, that was pretty legit. And then they've got this cat, Bucky Irving. Guys, don't sleep on Bucky Irving. If you play fantasy football and you are in a dynasty league or a redraft league, get you some fucking Bucky Irving, dude, because that guy is going to be the future centerpiece of the running back room in Tampa Bay. Rachaad White is still relatively young, but Rachaad White has some miles on him and some injuries. Bucky Irving is a younger option, a little bit faster, a little bit better between the tackles. I didn't say it. That's what they tell me. But I see it. And Baker Mayfield's just going to continue to grow with this team. I couldn't believe how Bryce Young, the Panthers quarterback, has developed the past 2 weeks. He takes the Panthers to the fucking brink of almost beating the Chiefs last Sunday. And then this Sunday, he almost beats Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. I mean, Bryce Young is growing before our eyes. And sometimes when you watch games like that, when you actually sit down and watch games like a Bryce Young trying to come back, it really reinvigorates your interest in football because this guy was trash. He's written off as, the Panthers are going to move on from him. I don't think in good conscience that you can move on from Bryce Young right now because he has developed against 2 very fantastic teams this year. Buccaneers are probably going to make the playoffs, and the Chiefs are definitely making the playoffs. And for him to come back, and the only reason that the Panthers lose that game is because Chuba Hubbard fumbles the football. If Chuba Hubbard doesn't fumble the football, the Panthers very well could go on to win that game. And I'm not a Panthers fan. I think the last time I actually liked the Panthers was when Jake Delhomme and Muhsin Muhammad and Steve Smith were suiting up for them in the Super Bowl back in like 04 or 05. and I think they played the Patriots actually, and they got their ass whipped. But that's the last time I can really remember liking the Panthers. But I'm intrigued by them now, to be completely honest with you. I really would like to see what they do, and I don't think that it's a unfair ask for them to keep Bryce Young and develop and see what they can do, because I mean, really, the quarterback class this year isn't legit outside of Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward. I don't even think that those are franchise-altering guys. I think you wait until a guy like Arch Manning comes out. I think you wait until a guy like Tavian St. Clair, Bryce Underwood, Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Arnold, those guys come out, because those guys are going to be the future. Jackson Dart, those guys are going to be the future of the NFL. I don't really foresee this quarterback class being much of anything. So roll with Bryce Young and see what you got. So that's my little recap on the NFL of the past couple days. And to end the segment tonight, I like to keep it light. I like to keep it light here. And let's go into the WWE War Games that happened this past weekend. Anthony, were you aware of the War Games happening this past weekend?
I was not.
Do you know what the War Games are?
No. Sounds like some Hunger Games, or maybe what's the movie, the Japanese movie? They're coming out with a new one. Squid Games.
Squid Game.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So actually, brother, it's funny that you say that, because like, all right, so picture this for me. You know what a wrestling ring looks like, correct?
Yes.
And you've seen Hell in a Cell, right? The steel cage matches?
Yes.
Okay, so imagine you put two wrestling rings side by side. You bolt them together with like this big like strip of metal, and then you put a huge steel cage around the two rings, right? Okay, so that's what War Games is. Okay. Now, they started the night off with Team Liv Morgan versus Team I think it was Team Bianca Belair, maybe. But the women's match, that's not the women's match. The women's match was absolutely insane, because you had high flyers like Io Sky come out, Bianca Belair, Nia Jax, who's like The Rock's cousin or something like that. She was out there. Rhea Ripley comes back, and the Eradicator, Rhea Ripley, is fucking a bad lady, man. She's a brick shithouse. And the women's match, I'm not really not to be sexist, because I'm not, but I'm just not as entertained by women's matches, because I feel like they're not as physical as the men's matches. The women get away more with doing like acrobatic, which is very athletic. But it's so right there we see Io Sky. She just does a backflip onto someone, knocks them out, and that's pretty legit. Knocks everyone out, and then you have what's called the Money in the Bank. So this girl, her name's Tiffany Stratton, won Money in the Bank, and she's going to cash in against either Liv Morgan or Nia Jax. And she acts like she's going to cash in, and she doesn't, which was pretty wild. And the GOAT of War Games right there, Io Sky. She is an absolute beast. She's an absolute animal, dude. I couldn't have asked for a better women's match to start the night. And then, do you remember Scott Steiner?
Yes.
All right, so his son is
Big Papa Pump.
His nephew's in WWE now. His name's Braun Breaker. All right, so he had a match against this dude Sheamus. I don't know if you remember Sheamus, and then another guy Ludwig Kaiser. That match was insane, because he's just hitting spear after spear after spear, fucking these people up. I can't say enough about how great that was. Then you have another match where you have who was it? LA Knight, who's one of my favorite wrestlers right now, versus another one of my favorite wrestlers right now, Shinsuke Nakamura, for a title. And Shinsuke's been gone since like probably like April, and he comes back like a week or two ago, and they start a little mini feud, and then they strip LA Knight of the title. Shinsuke wins, which is pretty awesome. I didn't see that coming, which was, I mean, pretty awesome, right? And then finally, you had the men's War Games. And that was the OG Bloodline versus the new Bloodline. So everyone who watched WWE knows Roman Reigns is the leader of the Bloodline, and he had Jay and Jimmy Uso, Solo Sikoa, and then Sami Zayn at one point, and Paul Heyman was his wise man. Well, after Roman lost to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, he left. Solo Sikoa took over the Bloodline, kicked Jay and Jimmy out, threw Paul Heyman through a fucking table, and then brought his cousins all in, Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa and Jacob Fatu, and then ended up recruiting a guy named Bronson Reed in. So that's his Bloodline. Roman comes back and wants to take over the Bloodline again, so he's got the Usos come back with him, Sami Zayn, and then CM Punk comes in with him. And to say that the match was electric would be doing it a disservice, because this match went on for 30 minutes. Bronson Reed climbs to the top of the cage, not the top of the rope, the top of the cage. Someone puts CM Punk on a table. Bronson Reed tries to do a tsunami off of it to crush CM Punk, but Roman Reigns pulls him off. I'm pretty sure Bronson Reed fucked his ankle up. Not sure. But that was something insane. The Usos, Jimmy and Jay, fuck someone up and put him on a table. Jimmy climbs to the top and puts him through the table. And as everyone's down, Sami Zayn picks everyone up. They pick up Solo Sikoa. Everyone super kicks him. Haluva kicks him. Roman hits him CM Punk hits him with the GTS, the go to sleep. And then Roman spears him, pins him, and it's over. And it was probably the only thing I could like equate it to is if you guys watch like Dragon Ball Z and like they're all fighting like one guy, like boom, 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 boom. That's what it was like. It was crazy. I haven't seen that in wrestling probably ever, with how intense that match was. And they kind of left it like ambiguous, like where the story is going to go from here. But I'm really excited to see what happens, because Triple H is playing a long game with storytelling like he always does. And I'm really interested to see on where this goes and what the implications of War Games has on, the lead up, because guys, Netflix is getting WWE on the first of the year. So it's going to be a higher production value, better story, because it has to be. Everything has to be better at this point. So right now you are setting up stories that are going to permeate through the next year.
Just real quick, jump in here. So obviously I do a lot of video, and I know a lot of people who do a lot of video, and actually there are really high requirements to be able to get on Netflix. Really high requirements as far as like expected viewership. They even care about the camera that you use.
Okay.
You can't use like
certain,
like the cameras that I use here, as good as they look, you can't use them on Netflix.
That's crazy. So
if anybody wants to be a sponsor and help provide us some better gear,
and we'll put on a wrestling event in Anthony's backyard.
We will put on all kinds of events.
Wrestling event. I'm in a singlet. My name's Tommy Gunn, and I shoot from the hip.
And he's coming out in a Speedo.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you guys will get to see my lawnmower tattoo. Where it is, you'll never know until you see me in my Speedo. But, yeah, so, again, we are going into a new era of WWE, which is going to be pretty fun. I'm excited to see it. Next week when we reconvene, guys, we will go over the games from the week. We are going to start doing a segment where I start telling you who I'm going to start for the next round of fantasy football and what my bets are going to look like going forward. We are going into In a couple weeks, we are going to be going into the college football bowl game season, which is a huge time for gambling. Let's make some fucking money together. Now, none of my picks are sponsored. None of my opinions are influenced by anything with gambling. You have to say that, and it's 100% true. I suck at gambling. I'm nowhere near a pro, but I've won some cash over the years, and I think this year we could all win some money together. So tune in for those picks. Tune in for what's going on in the college basketball. We're going to start getting NBA heavy here soon. Shout out to the Cavs for beating the Boston Celtics last night after it took 20 minutes to play 3 minutes in a game. Yeah, so thank you guys for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm Tom Roth. You guys have all made the cut. Thank you to my producer, Anthony Aquendo. We will see you guys next week. Have a blessed evening.